to inform you a little bit about what's going on with the BDS movement, some of the unfortunate things that we as Jewish people have to experience. So without any further ado, I'm going to call upon Gabe to address us. Thank you, Gabe.
So I'm not going to talk about BDS and all the things that are going on with BDS. That's the flip of the switch. I was going to talk about it, but I woke up today and I decided that there was other things I wanted to talk to you guys about. But first, let me introduce myself. Does anybody here know who I am, other than my wife who's sitting in the corner? Anyone else? Okay, so my name is Gabe Groisman. I spoke at NCSY Shabbaton. It has a LTS. That means something to you guys? Leadership something? Shabbaton? Training Shabbaton. There you go. So I spoke there and I spoke at Hillel. None of you guys, I don't know if you guys went to the big rally at Hillel earlier this year.
Oh yeah, I remember you.
Yeah, so that was me. I wasn't wearing jeans and sneakers, but that was me. I am from this community. I grew up in Aventura, North Miami Beach. Went to Hillel. Most of you guys are Broward kids, they tell me. That's okay too. And now I serve, other than what I do for work, which I'm a lawyer and all these fun, boring things, I also serve as a city council member. That baby's not even mine, by the way, to be clear. Not. It's my nephew or niece. They're twins.
That was your nephew.
That was my nephew. You can't tell the difference yet. So I serve on a city council where we passed the country's first anti-BDS law in Bell Harbor, Florida. And it wasn't just a piece of academics, something cool to pass, but it was because there's a church in our community that's part of the United Church of Christ. It's the biggest Protestant church in the country, who in June of last year boycotted Israel. And they divested all their money from Israel and any companies that benefit from the, quote, occupation. Just a side note, I know you guys are learning, there's a lot of Israeli kids here who probably know this. So I'm going to ask you to start with the question. Can Israel give back the, quote, West Bank, Judea and Samaria? Can Israel give back? Someone said no. You're saying they're capable, but they shouldn't. Okay, anyone else? Can Israel give back Judea and Samaria? Or the West Bank? Anyone else? What do you think?
A lot of Israeli citizens there, so no, they can't be abandoning their people.
Anyone else? ענבל, הישראלי? הם יכולים? לא. למה לא? Okay, there's people that are living there and the Jews that are living there, you can't just throw them out. Those are all good answers. But the right answer is Israel can't give back Judea and Samaria or the occupation or the West Bank, any of these things that you've heard, because there's no one to give it back to. Because between 1948 and 1967, who ruled the land of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria? You guys probably just did this on your iPhone test. Does anybody know? Jordan. And Jordan actually occupied that land in a war in 1948. So who ruled in that land before 1948? Maybe we can give it back to whoever ruled in that land before 1948. From the river to the sea, British Palestine shall be free. It's British. The British ruled in 1948. Starting, I think, I might be wrong, I want to say 1912, 1919. I'm sure someone can look it up on their phone. In the beginning of the 1900s, it was the British. Maybe we can give it back to who was there before. That was the Ottomans. They don't even exist anymore. So it's really a side note of what I'm saying, but the purpose of why I'm saying that is you can't accept things that you hear just because they're said over and over. So over and over people are saying, what's wrong with the Israeli occupation? They should give back the West Bank. They should do all these things. It doesn't even mean anything. But you'll learn that things are said over and over and over, and over time they become truths in society. But you don't have to accept those if you educate yourself and you have the knowledge of it. So 6 weeks ago today, I was standing in the darkest, bleakest, most disgusting place in the entire world. For the first time in my life, I went to Poland. And the worst part of my trip to Poland, I went for 5 days with 25 people, was a camp called Majdanek. Auschwitz is like an example of the machine that were the Nazis. It was perfect. You know, barracks and buildings and everything was, you know, It was a machine. That's how that was the most effective killing camp in all of the Nazis. Majdanek is just disgusting. It's just bleak. It's in the middle of a field, in the middle of a park, which happens to be in the middle of a town. And just lines and lines of just plain barracks where you could have put sheep in there and it would have been the same. And in the back of Majdanek, once you go through all of it, there's gas chambers. And next to the gas chambers, there always is next to the gas chambers. You'll learn if you guys go to March of the Living, right next to the gas chambers, they always have ovens. Because what do you do with all the bodies? So you have the ovens, the gas chambers. Next to the gas chambers, you have a spa. Literally a spa. A big whirlpool, big jacuzzi in a little room right next to the ovens. You know why there was a spa there? Because the sick commander of Majdanek wanted to take warm baths, spas. So he put where can he get heat that would make be efficient? You use the fire and the heat from the ovens that were burning 24 hours a day to boil the water in the tubes so he can have his spa in the room next door. But that's not the most disgusting part of Majdanek. The most difficult part of visiting Majdanek, welcome please. The most difficult part of visiting Majdanek is after you see all those things, you walk out the back of this gas chamber / ovens, and it's all one space. You see the spa, you're disgusted. And there's this structure. It's a big circular structure with steps going up, maybe 4 or 5 stories high. And the guide we're with says, all right, let's go up there and we're going to talk up there. So I figured, because I've been to a few of these camps, this was day 3 of my trip, that it was like a memorial. There's places where groups can gather. So we all go running up the steps, sort of have this energy, and you get up to the top, and you look, and you see a mountain of human ashes. A mountain of human ashes that are still sitting there today, from the day the camps were liberated. The Russians who liberated that camp I don't remember who liberated the camp, so the forces that liberated that camp, immediately they didn't know what to do with these ashes. It was a 5-story tall mountain of ashes. So they built this circular structure, and then picture like a kippah, a dome on top of it, with maybe a 15-foot space. And it was a perfect structure to let the wind pass and leave the ashes there. And I was standing there dumbfounded, because I thought I was done for the day. The emotions of the day were over. I mean, what can be worse than walking through a gas chamber, seeing the ovens, your heart's broken, and then you see a spa from the commander in the same room using the same heat from our ancestors, our forefathers, our grandparents and great-grandparents who were burnt in those ovens. This guy was taking a spa there. And you get to the top and you see these ashes. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I started thinking, what the hell am I doing here? What am I doing here? I'm 35 years old. Everything's good in my life. I have a great family. I have a wife, 3 kids, a great job. What am I doing here? And I started looking around and seeing my friends that were there with me. We weren't on a high school trip. We just decided we wanted to do this, so we put together this trip on our own. What are we doing here? And it made me realize that as Jews, we're really a special and unique people. Because we have had a group of 25 extremely successful, happy, well-adjusted people doing well in their lives who said, let's take a week out of our lives to go stand in this most disgusting, bleak, dark place. And it started this process in my mind of thinking, what is it that makes us special as Jews? And a few days later, there was a video circulating the internet. I don't know if any of you saw it. You guys know who Alan Dershowitz is? Alan Dershowitz is a professor from Harvard who is, if you watch People versus OJ, he was one of the OJ lawyers. But what he's really important for us, he's a big fighter for Israel. He wrote a book called The Case for Israel. He's always on TV. He's always debating. He's always fighting for Israel. Whether you agree with his positions or don't, one thing you can't disagree with is that he's dedicated a big portion of his life to fighting for the Jewish people. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. And while he was on his speech, while he was giving his speech, an Arab girl stood up and asked a question.
I saw, yeah,
You saw this.
I saw
on
it was
Facebook.
And the girl stands up and is asking all these questions and says, why don't the Jews just get over the Holocaust? And imagine me 2 or 3 days after coming back from this trip. My blood, I'm sitting in my office. I'm not supposed to be online, but I'm online. I see this video and my blood is boiling. I don't know what to do. I'm jumping out of my skin. Dershowitz is going to get her. I'm thinking he's going to jump down her throat. But his answer baffled me. He said, we have gotten over the Holocaust. We've built a state. We've built universities. We're finding the cure for cancer, for MS. We're bringing technology to the world. We've moved forward. We keep moving forward. And then it clicked that what makes us special and unique as Jewish people is that we thrive and live on that balance. With one foot in our past, in our traditions, whether it's religious traditions or being connected to our past, to the Holocaust, taking trips to be connected to what happened just 70 years ago. But at the same time, with the step, 1 foot moving forward and always trying to do something and contribute to society. And that is exactly what Medinat Israel is. The state of Israel, when you see the flag of the state of Israel, does anybody know what it is? What it's designed to look like? A talit. That is the symbol of our hope. That's the symbol, Hatikva, the song, our hope. Where we're moving forward. That's what the state of Israel is for us. But it wasn't founded in Zimbabwe or in any other place in the world. Where was it? You read in the Declaration of Independence for Israel. It was a reestablishment of a state in our ancestral homeland. We're connecting to the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, our past, our history. We just learned about it in Pesach, right? We came out of Egypt and we went to Israel, right? That's our past. The West Bank. We talk about the West Bank for Hebron is where Abraham is buried, Isaac is buried, Rebecca is buried, and our forefathers and mothers are buried in this place. This is our past, and we're connected to our past, but we're all the time moving forward. And what's important, guys, is if any of you saw when I spoke a little bit at Hillel, I touched on this just a little bit, that there's not a lot of Jews in this world. There's not enough Jews, certainly, that any of us can wait and rely on somebody else to take action for us as Jews. We don't have the privilege of being part of this huge community of, 10 to 20 to 30, 50 million people, where there's always going to be somebody fighting for us. You can just go and live your life and have a good time, and someone else will fight for you. There's not enough of us. And that's a privilege and an opportunity for all of us. So, I'm going to tell you guys a story. When I graduated high school in 1998, there really wasn't any anti-Semitism to be seen. It existed, but it wasn't up on the surface like we have it today. I went to the University of Michigan, which had the biggest and has the biggest Jewish population in any school. And it was, there was nothing. I was in a Jewish fraternity. It was fun. I was part of the Jewish kids, but that was really it. I went to Chabad. But I never had to face the things that you guys have to face, will have to face in a couple of years. But when I went to law school in Washington, D.C. at American University, about 2 years in, I walk into my law school, into the lobby, and out of nowhere, I never experienced anything like this. I didn't have training like you guys are having. I didn't have classes about this. And I walked in, and the entire lobby of the law school was pictures, big pictures of dead kids. One after the other, blood here and this. And then signs that says, Israel, the occupiers, are murdering Palestinian babies. End the occupation. And first I just walked past them. I walked past them like this. I went to my class. And I'm sitting in my class, and I said, I can't sit here. I can't sit here. I can't sit here. I never dealt with it. I never had someone talk to me about it, tell me what to do or what not to do. So I go back outside. I decide in law school you can't really miss class. And I said, I'm missing class. I'm not going to be in my class. I have to be out there. So I like prepared. I went, I put my stuff away, you know, law school, you go with all these books. And I'm like, I'm going to war. War meant I'm going to talk to these people one by one. And it was all women. It was all women, which made it even a more interesting dynamic. And it was all these Palestinian girls, Arab girls. And I went one by one, and I thought, I don't think I have enough knowledge to fight these people. They're from, so I started speaking to them. Where are you from? Bethlehem. Where are you from? One said Jerusalem. Where are you from? Ramallah. These were, imagine for them to be in law school in the United States. That's the occupation that they're suffering. You know, they were in law school in Washington, D.C. This is the creme de la creme of Palestinian, or at that point we used to call them Arab-Israeli society. And I decided I'm going to try. I'm going to start arguing with them. And I started arguing with them. And I realized within 2 minutes that the arguments that I knew, the things that I knew about, was 10 times more than what they even knew about their own people. Because these girls, we won't even talk big picture if these people were not, these girls that I was speaking to, all they knew was what they were taught in school. And what they were taught in school is a very skewed version and a very narrow version of reality. So for example, I said to them, at this point, I said, the Palestinian people, the Arabs in Israel, don't even have a leader that wants peace. There's not even anyone in leadership. You may want peace with the Israelis. She'll say, I want peace, all we want is love, all we want is to live together. I said, that's fantastic. Show me one Palestinian leader that wants the same thing. She says, Yasser Arafat. And I said, Arafat? Imagine me. I didn't know if I knew how to answer her. I said, Arafat pays $20,000 to someone who blows up a bus. And it had just happened. Just like it's happening now, it was happening then. I remember there was an attack on a school bus going to the south or something on a trip. I couldn't remember exactly now what I was thinking about today, but there was an attack. And they went and they killed children and they maimed these kids with this bomb. And Arafat paid the money. So I said, how can Arafat be your leader that you're talking about that's looking for peace, just like you are? You're a great person apparently, but you don't have a leader. He can't be the one. He named squares after people who are murderers. She didn't know what to say. She blanks. So then we go to the next argument. The next argument was, this was the time when Israel was building the famous wall, the fence. And they said, Israel's stealing Palestinian land through the fences. And I had been there. So I'd been there like 3 times that year. So I said, okay, which land? And she goes to show me a map. And I said, well, I don't remember what, it was something around Jerusalem. And she says, this was Palestinian. I said, that's Har Tzofim, Mount of Olives. She says, well, that was Palestinian. I said, that's a cemetery of Jewish graves. And well, they built the wall around it. I said, well, but that's not Palestinian. That can't be anyone else's, right? If those are cemetery. One by one, I had these arguments with these girls. Did I win them over? Did they now suddenly love Israel and love Jews and take down their posers? No chance. You know where we ended, so you know? Because this discussion didn't end. It went on for about 7 hours. It ended with me sitting around with the 6 of them screaming at me, and me arguing with them back and forth by myself. And people walking by as fast as they can, like I walked by in the beginning. It ended with, you guys are all great people. I said, you guys are fantastic. Because they were saying all these things, how they, all they want is love and peace and harmony. I said, you all, when you finish law school, should all run for Palestinian government and become the leaders and we'll have peace. I said, oh wait, you can't because you're women and they won't allow you to. So it didn't end well. But then I went to the dean's office. I went to the dean's office in the law school, who was Jewish. And guys, I hate to say this, but most of the enemies that you're going to face, I wouldn't say enemies, most of the obstacles you're going to face when you're fighting for Israel, the hardest obstacles that you're going to face are going to be other Jews. Because Jewish people have great souls and always want to do the right thing. And when they're misinformed and when they're afraid to be proud of who they are, a lot of times they think that they should be on that side of history. And that proves how good of a person they are. So I went to the dean, and thank God he was not one of those Jews. And I showed him, I said, you got to take this down. It can't move forward. I mean, this is incredible. He says, it's free speech. How can I stop it? And I said, you can stop it because they're all lies. And I had known them because I just spent 7 hours arguing about each of their, because each of the pictures had like a little writing, like of something bad that the Israelis supposedly did. And I knew them because I just went through it. I said, this one says this one says this. So long story short, or not that short, he pulled the presentation. They weren't allowed anymore to protest in front of the school. And I'm saying that as an example to you because I didn't mean to be a fighter for Israel on that day. It wasn't my intention. I wanted to go study business law, pass law school so I can impress my pretty wife and get a good job because I used to have hair like him and be a musician. And I wanted to go to law school to be a nice Jewish boy. Okay? And I wasn't intending on going and fighting for Israel that day. I just wanted to go try to figure out law school. But I realized that there was no one else in that school that was going to stand up for Israel and for the Jews. Can someone here tell me what diversity means? What's diversity?
Okay, well, it's just basically different types of people in any type of area that, like, not all the same. For example, like my school has such a big diversity. There's a lot of people from like India or China or I don't know, just places like that.
Perfect. And can we all, like, show of hands, diversity good? If you think it's good, raise your hand. Right? Diversity is great. And your answer is perfect. I don't have to ask anybody else. That's exactly what diversity is. But what people fail to realize is that for there to be diversity, you have to be diverse. And diverse means different. Diversity doesn't mean, you didn't say diversity is when a whole group of people come together and it's a melting pot and they all become the same and they're all hanging out together and they're all the same. Because that's not diversity at all. Because that's not diverse at all. That's making everybody homogeneous. Everyone the same. That's not diversity. And in the world we live in, we don't live in Mea Shearim. They can live there if they want, but we don't live here. None of us here decided to live in those type of communities. We live out in the world where there's diversity. And diversity is a good thing, but for there to be diversity, you have to be diverse, which means you guys have to be proud of who you are. And who you are is Jewish. And don't let people now try to divide, which is what they're trying to do now. Being Jewish and being, I'll use the term that's being used in the media, which I hate, and being pro-Israel. Because Israel and Judaism is one and the same. It's the same thing. Today, the reason why anti-Semitism has poked its ugly head again is because now people have a cover. They don't have to say I'm anti-Semitic. They could just say I'm not anti-Semitic. I have a Jewish friend. My baker's Jewish. I go to Zach the baker in Wynwood. He's cool. He's got a beard. He's Jewish. I like Jewish people. I'm just against Israel. I'm just against Israel. But Israel is the Jewish people. Israel is the nucleus of the Jewish world. And you have to learn to embrace Israel. You have to learn to be proud of Israel. You have to learn to be proud of being Jewish and not be afraid to show that. And take on upon yourselves, not today, we were speaking for 25 minutes. I don't ask you to take anything upon yourself on a 25-minute speech. Nothing in life should change you in 25 minutes. But I do ask you to start thinking at some point in your life, before you graduate high school hopefully, to become a fighter for Israel. Guys have any questions or anything you guys want to talk about? Don't be shy. You guys heard of Jesse Arm? Are we okay with that? You know who Jesse Arm is? So I don't know who you heard of his name? You're on the internet? You know things that are going on? You remember? Tell me what you think.
No, wait, I don't know. I don't know.
So Jesse Arm, I don't know. I wrote him an email. He didn't answer me. And I don't care. Jesse Arm did what I did at my law school times 1,000. Jesse Arm was walking at the University of Michigan in December of this past year. And they had a checkpoint, a mock checkpoint, with Israeli soldiers supposedly. And of course, they always have dead children. That's like a big dramatic thing. And tombstones. And in the middle of the diet, has anybody been to Ann Arbor, University of Michigan? So think of this. You've been? Okay. So it's a huge school. And in the middle of the school, it's called the Diag. That's like the crossroads. It's a big square in the middle of the school that everybody walks by. There's a big M in the middle. A little Michigan trivia, you can never step on the M, right, until you graduate. So they did it right in the middle of the Diag. And it's intimidating, guys, when you walk into a protest like that. And Jesse Arm, who was a member of student government there, decided to take them on because it was done on the same day that Ezra Schwartz, the Jewish boy from Massachusetts who was in Israel, was shot and killed in Gush Etzion. He was sitting in his car and someone came and shot through the door and killed him. On the same day that that happened, they decided to have this protest. And Jesse Arm said, I'm not standing for this. And he was fighting and yelling, and not physically fighting, by the way. When I say fighting for Israel, I mean arguing and standing up for who he was. So much so, he made such a drama, such a balagan in the place that they stopped it. And everyone, they had to, the police came, no one got arrested, but they sort of broke everybody apart. He went for it. And really, and just refreshing my recollection for today, I went to look online driving here with my wife. And I didn't know this. They started an ethics complaint against him to try to throw him out of school, Jesse Arm, for standing up for Israel. And surprisingly, they found that it's free, just as much as it's free speech for someone to get up and protest for this or that cause, it's free speech for someone to stand up and defend his position. And that's what he did. And that's another example of being a fighter for Israel. Did you go to Michigan?
But we're from.
Oh, really? Bloomfield Hills or something?
Exactly.
That's where all the Jews live. Yeah.
So number one, I'm Ben.
That's me.
From Ann Arbor.
So I go to
Ann
Hillel.
Arbor.
My brother graduated last year.
Bloomfield
He's
Hills,
in Michigan
Michigan.
now. And he was like very close with experts. They were like very good friends. So just that's like a side note. Well, but so my teacher, he was telling us, he went to Georgetown University. And he said there was a checkpoint just like that, and they were like sort of like harassing people, like people who look Jewish or who knew people were Jewish, they were harassing them.
Yeah.
And so he and his friends decided to dress up like Muslims, and they put like the whole thing on their head and everything. And they held up signs right next to the checkpoint that said, "If I was a suicide bomber, you would be dead. That's why this checkpoint is here." And after like a couple of hours, the checkpoint, everyone who was there just got up and left.
Wow. Wow.
Scared when you confronted the women.
Yes. Yeah, I was scared. It's a scary thing to stand up for yourself. You know, these days, guys, you guys learn a lot about bullying, right? I mean, that's sort of a thing that they talk about in schools these days a lot. Anti-Semitism is a form of bullying. And I hope this is the right thing to say in front of parents, but if you're being bullied over and over and over, at some point you have to stand up for yourself, right? If not, it doesn't stop. And with anti-Semitism, we've seen where it goes when it doesn't stop. Do you guys know the first thing that Hitler did when he came to power?
Nuremberg laws?
Right before the Nuremberg laws. The stars? That was right around the corner. The first thing he did was, on the first day, he initiated a boycott on Jewish businesses. And he took all Jews out of government positions, including teachers, because the teachers work for the state. And you know why he did it? Because he said, and he was right, that the first step to destruction of a people is delegitimization. To make them illegitimate, to take them away from society. And the BDS movement, which they told me not to talk too much about it today, there's a little confusion, because I guess you guys had a class about it last week or the last time you met. But the BDS movement does the same thing. The purpose of the BDS movement is to destroy Israel. And the purpose to destroy Israel is to destroy the Jewish people. I'm not trying to be an alarmist, I'm telling you the truth. And I'm not making that up. People think the BDS movement is some sort of grassroots movement. People got together, let's do this. It's not. I don't want to give you a history lesson on it, but it was founded in 2005 in Ramallah by a guy named Omar Barghouti and 3 of his friends. By the way, he started as, it was called the Palestinian Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, PACBI. And the irony of ironies This guy was from Qatar, raised in Egypt, and you know where he was studying when he started the boycott of Israel? Tel Aviv University. He got his PhD from Tel Aviv University. So they got together with 120 groups, NGOs, and they put together their money and their forces to decide, to figure out how they can fight Israel. And I'm telling you that, you can look online, they're proud of what they're doing. His number 2, and I forgot his name, I'm sorry, it's something Al-Khalil. He said in 2005, and it's on his website, they're proud of it, he said there should be no equivocation. Equivocation means no moving back and forth. There should be no equivocation. The purpose of the BDS movement is the destruction of Israel. Period. So to answer your question, it's scary when you stand up to a bully. But if you don't stand up to a bully, it doesn't end well for you. At some point you have to stand up. And this is all a form of bullying and you have to stand up. But yes, it's scary.
Beautiful.
Anyone else? All right, well thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure.